because hybrid, if you call it hybrid, then basically you don't need to do anything about it. You can just talk about it in the conference, and it solves the problem. If you call it terrorism, then it implies reaction. That then there's actually something needs to happen. In several countries, there have been incidents that we know that have been organized, financed by Russians in order to burn down the buildings, harm people, destroy property. So how else can you call it? And this is where the biggest danger comes from. That if we stay in this situation long enough, that sends a very clear message to Russia that basically they are able to do whatever they want. They can walk around, they can harm people, they can burn down buildings, and we still will be talking about the hybrid. And this is the biggest problem. And I usually say, and I'm not afraid of Russia. I'm afraid of our fear of Russia. This is what really keeps me up at night. And if we don't find a way how to stop Russians, how to send a message to them that this is it, this is a red line, you cannot cross it, then they will continue.
Wow,
It's a
man,
little.
I felt that. I felt that. Um,
That's an old Lithuanian folk song that I chose because, well, Gabrielis is Lithuanian, and it's called "O Gira Gira."
it's absolutely stunningly beautiful. I felt it so much. Thank you, as always, for your opener. High fidelity. I am Heidi Kuda, and I'm with Jim Stewartson and Hi-Fi. We are Radpod and Not So Chill. We've been not so chill for a minute, but we're doing the best we can. Quick note to our friends who watched our most recent episode that we're going to be showing highlights from the Never Surrender episode with Gabrielis Landsbergis, who is the former foreign minister of Lithuania and a former member of EU Parliament. He has really been a one-man wrecking ball against disinformation, exposing Russia and their antics. And I just want to say that Monique Kamara, who is one of our friends and geopolitical analyst, she told me something I didn't know when we did the interview with Gabrielis, that his grandfather was an incredibly important member of parliament in Lithuania. And he actually, March 11th, 1990, Gabrielis's grandfather headed the parliamentary session during which the restoration of Lithuanian independence from the Soviet Union was declared. Lithuania was the first of the countries to declare independence from the Soviet Union, and the Soviets attempted to stifle him with an economic blockade, but it failed. And so I just want to say, like, one person can make such a difference. And of course, we are so excited to bring you highlights from that most recent interview with Mr. Landsbergis, because it was incredibly inspiring. And yeah, I mean, I just thought I would start with a little bit of positive. Let's start with your positive juju story on Greenland, Jim. Why don't we start there tonight?
Sure. Yeah, every once in a while you gotta just take a break from the fire hose of shit and, look at a country that has the population of Carson City, Nevada. 56,000 people in Greenland. It's the least populated area on I think the incorporated area on the planet. And Greenland fucking hates Donald Trump and Usha and JD Vance. And I was inspired by Greenland, this tiny little country, because a bunch of Usha's handlers were walking around Nuuk, the capital, and trying to find anyone who wanted to meet her. Would you like to meet the second lady of the United States of America? And every single one of them said, no thanks. And in fact, some of them said, we're going to be signed. There was signs that say Yankee go home. Again, I don't know if you've seen, but I love it. Yankee go home, say the signs in Nuuk, Greenland. Fuck off, say the Greenlanders. And so they ended up going to their safe space at an Air Force or Space Force base on the western, coast of Greenland, far away from the population who cannot fucking stand them. So I found some inspiration in that. Now, on the same day that the Greenlanders rejected the Vances, Donald Trump went on some weirdo's podcast and was like, frankly, it just sounded very rapey. It was, we're gonna have it. We're gonna have to have it. They're gonna have to get used to this idea. We're gonna have to convince them, but we're gonna have it. It's like, the fuck are you? What are you talking about? But again, as we've discussed here many times, Greenland is just part of a master plan to get the entire North American continent. And as a final bit of info on that, today, Vladimir Putin stood on stage and said, guess what? You guys can have Greenland. It'll be amazing. You can have Greenland and that'll be fine, with the absolute, completely understood other side of that deal, which is I get Ukraine and then Eastern Europe. That is the fundamental deal that has been made here that I'm trying to get across to people, which is that, and we'll talk about Hegseth, but he went after Europe, and there's a reason. There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
He didn't want to bomb the Houthis because it was going to help Europe too much. What the fuck? I'm old enough to remember 3 fucking months ago when we were allies with Europe.
Yeah.
They were our friends when we did stuff for them, and vice versa.
Yeah.
But instead, we're cutting off vaccines to Africa with the projection of killing 1.2 million children in the next 10 years. So isn't that fucking awesome of us?
Yeah. I'm when everybody was ganging up against Biden and not thinking about the unmitigated, unrelenting evil that would be unleashed if Trump got reelected, and here we are. Thank you for that.
I think we should have ganged up on Biden more to do more to mediate this. All of it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like,
I know what you're saying.
all of this was planned. All of this was written down.
Yeah.
Go read the Dark Enlightenment. You go read yourself a little Project 2025. You read a little bit of fucking QAnon.
We've read it
Bob's
all.
your uncle. It's the whole goddamn thing right in front of you. They told us. They tell you.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this right quick, because I don't think people still don't understand what the fuck this is. And people need to know why this exists.
I don't want to repeat myself because I have talked about it, but that map right there was a map that Elon Musk's grandfather pushed as the Canadian leader of Technocracy Inc. So it says Technate of America down there. The idea was to turn all of North America from Colombia all the way up to Greenland and turn it into a technate, which would be run by technocrats, by people with big brains and engineers and fancy people that we couldn't possibly keep up with because they're so much smarter than we are. So that there was this movement called Technocracy Inc. And Elon Musk's grandfather, Joshua Haldeman, ran it in Canada. And then he got arrested because it was pro-Hitler. This was 1940. So he'd been pushing this for years, and was very into the Hitler thing because it was going to give them the opportunity to institute their technate. They wanted the war. They wanted him to do that shit over there. They didn't give a crap about Europe. They wanted their fiefdom, and they were going to run it, with their technologists or whatever. But that didn't work out. Canada got mad and kicked him the fuck out, or arrested him. And to be fair, Joshua Haldeman hung around for another 10 years. But lo in the distance, South Africa has a plan for Joshua Haldeman. Oh, you don't like all those multicultural people in the Canadas. You don't like all that soft drinks and movies and shit. Well, come over here to South African apartheid because it's whites only and it's good for everybody white. So come on. And he did. And he was like, yes, I'm going to do that. And by the way, I was watching an interview with 60 Minutes. And it's one of the most sort of jaw-dropping moments I've seen, because I actually kind of remember it. It's an interview of Elon Musk on 60 Minutes. Scott Pelley, hardcore interviewer Scott Pelley, asked him, so why did your grandfather move to South Africa? And Elon Musk said he was an explorer. He wanted to explore from South Africa. So he explored things in his plane. The only things he explored were fucking mines and shit that he could exploit the black slave labor that he wanted, literally. And so Elon Musk says with a straight face he was an explorer. And Scott Pelley, well, I guess it runs in the family, huh? And that's it. And I'm sitting there like, dude, all you had to do was ask him one question. When was that again? What was the year? What was going on around then? Oh, but no, 60 Minutes chose instead to do the Maggie Haberman thing with Elon Musk. And we're going to get the saucy young billionaire over here and just let the whole moved to apartheid in 1950 thing get passed off as some kind of, explorer. He was a fucking Nazi, straight up. And so was his kid. Anyway, thank you for my TED Talk.
If you want to learn more about that, Jim's been covering that story for years at mind-war.com. So you should check that out. And I think based on what we've been talking about, we should go straight to the wealth of information that we got from Gabrielis. Again, former foreign minister of Lithuania, but just somebody who has been so clear-eyed on where we've dropped the ball when it comes to the type of warfare that Russia has been waging on democratic nations. So let's check out one of those clips, High Fidelity.
so for us in Lithuania, the what was called the hybrid warfare against my country, against the region in Europe, probably signified one of the best examples of what has been happening, since the full-scale invasion into Ukraine. That the West has chosen to be extremely careful not to overstep the red lines in our own minds, because if we do that, we might anger Putin, and as if there would be no way how to get us out of that anger. And it led to the situation where Putin was able to escalate freely in Ukraine and outside Ukraine, push those red lines further down, onto us. And unfortunately, we presented ourselves as helpless in most of the cases. We were unable to show to Putin, that we are ready to stand up, that we have means in our arsenal to push back and to inflict, pain when it is needed. And the example that you showed, that was the things that were happening just, a couple of kilometers from my house now. The shopping mall that was burned down, and it has now been proven that it was Russians, and we still don't call it anything else. I mean, it's a hybrid. So the reaction to it is also hybrid.
Should be hybrid.
Well, it is hybrid because it's, both. It's a hybrid just means it's a combination of physical, and psychological and active measures.
Well, his point is that we can just sit around and have nice conferences about it and not do anything about it.
Well, he's describing the fundamental thing that has happened in America, right? Which our government did and what Biden did, which is to allow him to escalate freely.
Yeah.
Right. He escalated freely with his propaganda, with his psychological warfare, with infiltrating the government, with infiltrating media, with spreading his bullshit all over X freely because Elon Musk has, allowed it to happen. And not once did we call it out as what it is, as a Russian warfare attack on the United States of America, ever. We never once did it, and that will fundamentally be our death knell should that come to pass, because we didn't have the courage. Now in America, it is also, by the way, and I'm finished here, it is also a hybrid war. What do I mean by that? I mean they had fucking devices, physical devices that they were beaming into people's heads to give them brain damage. And again, that's Havana syndrome. You must be crazy. Right. They weren't crazy at all. It was a physical attack on people outside and inside the U.S., and the government still won't acknowledge it. And
now
will.
We have our now waging warfare.
It's the same thing as he's talking about. It's just our own government let it happen.
But our own government is waging this warfare on people right now. And so, Jim, we may as well. I do want to see the next clip from Gabrielis, but I'd like to pause for a second and have Jim walk us through just briefly, because I know we've I'm sure the media's beat it to death, but Pete Hegseth's response called out when he immediately started launching into the Russia hoax. It's like they are using Russian propaganda on our minds daily, hourly, in every single way. And it's like, because we have not had any leadership to define it for us, you're stuck with people like us telling you what's going on. But Jim, you might as well give that a few minutes.
I mean, what can you say about them calling a principals meeting? So a principals meeting is the government, is like the top, all of the government. That's it, like all the big people at the top of the government. I guess there's 18 of them or something like that. And, all the big secretaries and all that shit. and the chief of staff and everybody important that can make actual decisions in the government. And Mike Waltz casually was like, oh, we're going to have a principals meeting, and started a Signal chat, just whoop, off the top of his head. He spelled principles wrong. This is the National Security Advisor to the United States of America, the person who tells Donald Trump what foreign policy shit he's supposed to do. And by the way, the same role that Mike Flynn held for 2.5 Scaramucci's back in the day. And they just extremely casually were absolutely, and all this bullshit about, oh, it wasn't war plans and it wasn't classified and it wasn't this or it wasn't that. Dude, no. He copied and pasted from classified documents and put it into Signal to show off for his fellow chuds in the principals meeting on Signal. That breaks all of the laws, espionage. They had disappearing messages set, so it violates the Federal Records Act. Not to give a shit about that. There was 11,000 documents in the bathroom, but the thing is, you get the idea that this was a regular occurrence. It was no big deal. Oh, we're gonna bomb somebody, so let's fucking hang out on Signal and yap about it. And so, in a certain way, there's like, oh, okay, they actually are completely fucking incompetent, right? Which is almost like, in a way, makes me feel a little better that they really are this fucking stupid. And not to mention, like, who's this extra dude in here? Nobody wanted to ask the question. Steve Witkoff. Now, there's some controversy about whether he left his phone or exactly what time he had it or whatever. But Steve Witkoff was in fucking Moscow when he was getting all of these text messages from this group. Also, and you may have missed this if you have a life or anything and were at work or something, Pete Hegseth, Tulsi Gabbard, and Mike Waltz, all their passwords to Signal were in public. You could get them from the database. You just tap in their name and you can get their fucking Signal password. So guess what? Guess who's listening in? Now, here's the thing about all of that. Here's the thing that that is in my estimation the truth. They do that shit all the time because they don't want to be caught. They don't trust the deep state, right? They don't trust the deep state to be on the actual government system, so they do it on a commercial app you can download next to fucking Angry Birds, right? So the entire fucking thing is I think emblematic of where we are. This casual application of death, by the way. Remember, Hi-Fi showed some emojis. They collapsed an apartment building. One of the lines that Captain Signal Commando fucking printed in there was about an apartment building that was collapsed in order to get some terrorist's girlfriend or something like that. And they were like, yay, the apartment building collapsed. The apartment building collapsed. And they're in their fucking chat group yucking it up. And I think, it's just emblematic of where we are, which is psychopathy gone absolutely bonkers wild is Pete Hegseth is a screeching psychopath who also happens to be deeply in the end times sort of cult situation. Today, it was revealed, if you look at the underneath his arm here, he had a new tattoo since becoming Secretary of Defense. It's an Arabic word. It means infidel. If you go back and search, like 15 years ago, they got rid of that tattoo because it was Islamophobic. Everyone was like, what? It's like, you know, having Heil Hitler, the N-word or whatever. And it was extremely offensive.
Yeah.
And so he tattoos it after becoming Secretary of Defense next to Deus Vult, which is right here on his arm. Deus Vult means God wills it. That was the Crusades slogan. Next to the giant thing on his chest, which is the Jerusalem cross, which was the Crusaders' flag. Dude, anybody remember he got drunk and started yelling at a strip club to kill all the Muslims? That's the real Pete Hegseth. He wants to occupy Gaza because he wants a third Temple Mount in Jerusalem and wants to literally bring back the fucking, and he wants Jesus to come on the carpet, and he's gonna actually use the power of the most lethal force ever constructed in human history in order to do it. So anyway, there's my few minutes on Pete.
Well,
hold on. I got to mention this because this bugs the shit out of me. The same time SignalGate is going on, 4 American soldiers in Lithuania on the Belarusian border turned up dead. There's Trump didn't even know about it. He hadn't been briefed about it.
They asked him about it. He was like, huh? What?
And what is our Secretary of Defense doing? He's attacking the fucking reporter who got added to the text chat.
That's where I was going. That Darvo response that he gave, he is such a trained propagandist. It was just like Darvo, Russia hoax. It's like, oh my God, that knocking from below. It's literally like you think you hit bottom, knocking from below. That was my take on that. Thank you for walking us through that, Jim. And hi-fi. May we see a second clip from Gabrielis.
I've did some reading lately into what was called the Truman Doctrine. Back in the time when we were able to say to separate the good from bad, we were able to say what's evil and what's not. And it was very clear that that there are free peoples around the world, and there are dictators, totalitarian dictators, and these dictators, if they're forced upon the people, they break the rules-based order of the world, and it goes against the U.S. interests. And that has been a doctrine for decades, and somewhere down the road we started losing it. We were unable to really distinguish what isn't U.S. interests in the world, and per extension also the Western, because European countries in most cases would follow doctrinal logic of certain at least in certain elements from the U.S. So what we have been seeing is that probably freedom has lost its value, that this, and in sense, the reason why we should be defending it. Stability probably has replaced it for at least, the previous administration. That means that we are more keen in retaining the status quo rather than saying, okay, we will help those who.
I mean, let's face it. America is an Axis power now. We align with Russia. We align with North Korea. We're going to have some sort of dust up with China just so a bunch of people die. But
let me. I mean, I don't know if you saw, but Kash Patel said in his testimony, he was asked, what is the thing hampering you the most to get rid of fentanyl? And he said that we can't do operations in mainland China. I was like, what the fuck? Whoa, you're the FBI, bro. That's You're not, like, you don't get to do shit in China. What are you talking about? And nobody even, it just goes right on by that Kash Patel is sitting here trying to start a war with fucking China in a congressional hearing.
Yeah, they all have their designated, targets, and that's what happens when the world's worst people are put into positions of power to destroy our freaking country. I do want to say,
Go ahead.
No, the one thing I wanted to say, and I want Americans and our viewers to think about this seriously. Three of America's most important scholars on fascism, on Eastern European history, on Ukraine, on Russian aggression. Literally, one of them, our friend Jason Stanley, wrote, how fascism works, and our friend Marcy Shore wrote The Ukrainian Night, explaining how the Maidan revolution took place. And of course, Timothy Snyder, her husband, wrote On Tyranny, On Freedom, The Road to Unfreedom. So many incredibly vital books, and they've been such important people in trying to educate people and let people know the stakes. And they've left America. Three of our best scholars, have taken jobs in Canada. And Jason Stanley said that it's not because he's fleeing America, it's because he is going to defend democracy now in Canada. And it's like, so I say that because for those who have decided that they just kind of want to bury their head in the sand, this is a good time to realize the quote that we often hear on the show, that you might not be interested in war, but war is interested in you. And when three of the most incredibly important Americans in this time now live in Canada, that should make everybody, think for a minute.
Well, not just three. I mean, three scholars of fascism. What does it tell you that three scholars of fascism left the fucking country? What does that ring a goddamn bell with anyone? Gabrielis was talking about the status quo. And, again, it's not about, spilled milk, but we spent 4 fucking years just doing status quo, right? We were like, oh my God, it was so terrible that all we have to do is go back to the status quo and everything will be fine. And it ain't. It wasn't. It was never going to be. And, frankly, I think, the death knell of the sort of political establishment as we know it. If people don't know, they are already going after the 2026 election. You got Elmo out here, voter ID, paper ballots, blah, blah, blah. What they want to do is put a bill into place that cannot be accomplished by the states in time in order to throw the whole goddamn thing into chaos. Guess why? Because it'll be a big ass whooping. If there were a free and fair election, it'd be a big ass whooping. It would. It's just, that's how this works. It's always worked this way. second term swing election, but they don't want it. Elon Musk is trying to buy, in case you didn't know, the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Now, why is that? Because he wants to legalize gerrymandering the thing so hard that no Democrat can ever win it. And this douchebag Brad Schimmel that they've been pumping nonstop like he's some kind of prophet is just some douchebag chud who Elon Musk wants in there because he's going to be willing to make it undemocratic permanently. I mean, these people are not going to, allow the libs to take their power. They're not.
No.
And we got to get used to the idea that it's time to think outside the box.
Yeah, to your point, Dave.
Their vision for us is really outside the box. and I'm getting a little tired of still the permanent inertia that I see, among most people.
Yeah, I just wanted to say to Jim's point and why they can't have free and fair elections, because a conservative district that has not voted blue since the Civil War, there's a seat flipped in Pennsylvania, Democrat, just in an election that just occurred, that you can go to David Pepper's Substack and get that, and that would be duplicated all across the country if we had free elections. So again, I do want to see the third clip from Gabrielis, but I'd also like Jim to kind of talk us through your grim predictions if nothing is done, your most recent Substack report.
Well, that's a long list. So there's another piece that's part of that maybe I want to talk about instead that is it's a very fascinating history that I didn't know, and I've been reading a lot of history, which is about the Reorganization Act. So you probably haven't heard of it. I haven't really heard of it. FDR in 1939. FDR was a badass, like a badass in a lot of different ways. He took power in an almost undemocratic way in April 1939, introduced something called the Reorganization Act, which effectively allowed him to reorganize the government with something called a reorganization plan. And you're supposed to, as the president, write a plan, and then you give that to Congress, and then the Congress either says yes or no, they debate it, they do whatever, and Bob's your uncle. Now, the thing about it is that it's only a simple majority. So they can do stuff like say, oh, we don't like the Department of Education or IRS or EPA or any of these other woke shits. So we're going to get rid of those things. And they can do it without any Democratic say so whatsoever. So historically, this is what's known as an enabling act. There have been many in many different countries. It's a class of thing, but the most famous one is 1933, the Enabling Act, which allowed Hitler to seize total control of the government, to sideline the Reichstag, and to commence, everything that we know is going to happen. And if this bill passes, it will be, mark my fucking words, the Enabling Act. And nobody even has any idea who introduced it? James Comer. So it's what's called a bicameral bill. It has to be, according to the statute. It is Title 5, if you want to look it up in the U.S. Code, Chapter 9. And so these guys, Comer and anybody heard of Based Mike Lee? The dude who wants to just become Nazis. Like, I mean, like, dude quote tweeted me the other day. Like, he's a fucking idiot. He's like a 4chan. There are words that I shouldn't say. He is the guy who is introducing it in the Senate. And they were debating it in Congress. And a congresswoman was looking at this document. And if you look at it, all it is like, replace Section 5 for agencies with executive departments, just a bunch of gobbledygook and words and shit. And so you have to go and like match it up against the title and all this stuff. And this congresswoman had no idea what the hell she was looking at. And she started asking Comer questions. And Comer had no fucking idea either. He was like, oh, I don't know. Where does it say we can, the Congress still has, and I'm sitting there thinking, holy shit. Neither side knows what this is or what it means or what it will do. Because what will happen is Donald Trump will make a reorganization plan. And it's going to say the craziest shit you can possibly imagine, and there's nothing Democrats can do about it. And you haven't heard about it yet, but I promise you will. Last thing, FDR was a badass, a total badass. What he did in 1939 was incredible. If anybody has ever read like the best business plan you've ever seen in your life, this was a man, passionate, hardcore, pro-democracy, I don't give a fuck dude who was just saying, look, we got to fix this shit. We got to do it right now. Here's why we're going to do it. Here's why it's important for democracy, for your freedom. And then here's like 50 pages of incredibly detailed and amazing structural changes that he wanted to the government that he got. Now, last thing, Curtis Yarvin, who you guys may have heard of, admires FDR in a way. He thinks FDR is a woke liberal communist, but admires the what he did, and so that's why they're renewing this Reorganization Act, which expired. It got renewed a bunch of times, and it expired in 1984. Okay, and there's a reason for that, because it gave the president too much goddamn power. That's why nobody has used it since Jimmy Carter tried it. And that is the mechanism that they will use to dismantle everything that we've built for 250 years.
Yeah, two things on that. One is that the scholars that we were mentioning who have done tons of work around Nazi Germany, they've seen all this before. It's a playbook. So what Jim's talking about is something that is a documented playbook on how you seize power and don't relinquish it until a lot of people and a lot of destruction, until world wars, essentially. The other thing is that in all my studies of Nazis in America in the 30s and 40s, they've been trying to undo and unravel the work of FDR ever since it was happening in real time. And we used to take people like that and bring them up for treason or, send them out of the country, return them to their country of origin. And, We don't do that anymore, and that is why we are in such terrible, terrible peril. I would like to see the third clip, unless Hi-Fi, there's something else you want to check in on.
Let's just watch the third clip. I'll talk later.
Kind of what the situation currently reminds me of is that Europe is playing this animal, when when attacked by an aggressor or a bigger animal, that it just plays dead in hopes that that the predator will just walk away. So if we don't admit that we're under attack, we're just lie on our backs, belly up, not looking pretty. That is our hope, that that Putin just sniffs us and just decides, okay, they're not worth eating because basically they're just dead, and walk the other way. Because for me, I really, really don't understand the whole debate that has been going, and especially now, because if we divide it, okay, so since the war started up until the Trump's election, you might have thought, and we have that discussion in Lithuania as well, that look, I mean, it's extremely costly to have a European defense strategy, really, to change, to imagine the world without the US. I mean, we're talking trillions, literally, like people calculated, it's like, I don't know, 5 trillion euros that need to be invested in order for us to be able to replace the United States here in Europe. So since there was no debate about that, or at least, we could have pretended that there's no debate about that, it was kind of, at least you could have find an explanation why we're there. So we invested, Poles invested more, but the Europe was not moving. So Putin did not wake us up. So now comes Trump, and he says, look, I might be moving out of Europe. And I'm convinced that this will happen in some way or form. And now you have leaders of Europe literally declaring that, look, Europe is a soft power project. We need to think more about our culture and songs and I don't know what, rather than weapons. And to me, there's literally just no explanation other than, you guys back at the front, you deal with Putin, and we'll just be fine wherever we are, further down south or west. And this is scary because basically it means that the Europe, which we consider it being, some sort of a union that takes care of all the countries within, and
it might be no more. That's yeah. The people in the Baltics get it. The people who live next to Russia get it. Poland gets it, right? Germany's still dicking around because they've got so much influence running through that country. Austria, I mean, they just found 2 more Russian spies in Austria running influence operation. France, let's see if Macron steps up. We'll see what happens. Spain, they're doing nothing. Portugal, well, it's Portugal. The UK is could do something. Starmer seems committed, but at the same time, they still allow Russians to own property in London and launder money through the Isle of Man. So,
but look, this is very simple. I'm so sorry that I missed this interview because Gabrielis could not be more correct. Could not be more correct. What's happening here is that the United States is throwing Europe to Putin. It's so fucking obvious, like that it boggles my mind that there's even a debate about this. As he said, it's very simple. There needs to be an army of Europe. The Europe needs to kick the United States out of NATO, kick our fucking bases out. They need to deal with their own defense because we are not going to do it. In fact, we are openly assisting the Russians get prepared for invading Europe. If Europe, if you're listening, fucking get off your ass. Stop pretending that there's an option. You need an army. You need your own nuclear umbrella. And the most important short-term, easiest thing you can do, ban Elon Musk and all of his shit from Europe. All of it. Ban it. All of it. Start with X. That's easy. Fucking IP ban that shit. It's poisoning everybody all across the world. We allowed it to happen here. You don't have to make this mistake. You've already made the mistake, but you don't have to compound it. Every time there's an election in a European country, homie goes bonkers and do 600 tweets about how the other guy's a pedophile or whatever, or tries to start a riot, or goes to meet with the Nazi Party of Germany. Like, what are you guys thinking? You should take Tesla factories and turn them into weapons manufacturing plants. You should seize any of his Starlink or spaceship shit and build your own stuff, your own satellites. You need your own identity and your own power, because this world is not politics and diplomacy anymore. This world is about power only. The United States has destroyed the political and diplomatic part of all of it, right? There's no more politics here, and there's no more diplomacy overseas. It's just power. And until everybody collectively, us in the United States, everywhere around the world, understands that we are dealing with narcissism in its purest and most dangerous form, all it understands is power. We can't negotiate with it. We can't have a nice chat with it. We can't coexist with it. We have to beat it.
Yeah, and everything that Jim just said, and also not just the crash rearmament. Don't do what we did and ignore the battlefield that is the virtual information war battlefield that is just so incredibly critical. And of course, what you said about X is really vital. At least France arrested the CEO of Telegram. I mean, like, I think that
wandering around, fucking, you know what Pavel Durov just did? He invited Grok to be the search engine for Telegram.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know. I'm just saying, like, at least there seems to be some signs that there is awareness. But yes, of course, my concern is that, tanks and all that are very nice, but when your countries are being infiltrated through the internet, and your organic disputes among people are being heightened and accelerated, and gas is being poured on those fires by Russian interference. We know over and over again this is what happens. Fight that battle as well. Like, don't ignore that, because I think that's how we lost America.
No,
Yeah. Here we are.
Here we are.
Hi-fi. Couple words for
I just, one of the points I made with Gabrielis is that we call it hybrid warfare. We call it cognitive warfare. We call it information warfare. We call it, whatever. But the second part of every single one of those is warfare. Russia is at war with the West. Who is helping them? China, North Korea, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, UAE, conservative elements in Israel. It's global war. It's World War III. And we're still trying to figure out if there are political solutions to this bullshit. Seniors across America are about to lose their Social Security. Those checks aren't going to be coming very soon, right? What's going to happen then? How many people in America are going to die? The USAID, the medications, the food. Up in Cleveland, Ohio, because of the federal bullshit, they pulled back a bunch of trucks full of food that's now going to sit and rot that could have fed people who live around me. So I don't know what it's going to take, but America needs its own orange revolution. It's time for a Maidan. I don't know why people aren't planning to go to DC for the spring and the summer, and why they're not filling the streets of that fucking city and shutting it down and letting Trump know that we know what he is. He's a Russian asset. His whole government is corrupt, degenerate predators who do nothing but prey upon decent Americans. We know that they're jacked up preachers in the evangelical movement. We know the hard right of the Catholics, these Leonard Leos, these Opus Dei, Knights of Malta, whatever people. We know they've taken over the Supreme Court. When is America going to say, holy crap, we've been taken over, let's go throw the bastards out? I don't understand what's taking so long.
I think for it is the classic situation in all of these kind of fascist takeovers. There's a delay between the things they do and it actually affecting people. And in the time that it takes to affect you, they've moved on to much worse shit, right? And it keeps going like that, right?
And it just
keeps getting worse and keeps getting worse and keeps getting worse. In my view, there's going to be a moment sometime probably in April when they try to go extrajudicial by invoking the Insurrection Act, invoking some sort of martial law. As not to repeat myself, but just so people know, if you missed it, there's a date, 4/20, that is written in an executive order that Signal Commando Pete Hegseth and Kristi Noem have to write a report to determine whether or not to invoke the Insurrection Act at the southern border. Now, 4/20 is a funny day, haha, because it's weed and all of that, and Elon Musk likes it and all of that, but it's also Hitler's birthday, and Elon Musk likes it a lot because of that. And so, I put it I don't know what percentage, but a non-trivial percentage that there will be some crazy shit that goes down on the 20th. Another date that people should be aware of is the 2nd of April. Liberation Day is what we've been told. And apparently this is when an ass ton of new tariffs are going to be put on our neighbors. Tariffs are warfare. It's financial warfare. There's absolutely no benefit to us at all for putting tariffs. Here's what happens. We put a tariff on and make our people, by the way, we raise the prices for our own people on their goods. And then they go, oh fuck, well we have to do that too. And then they raise it on their own people. And guess what? You have the same people who are just more pissed off and just everybody's paying more for it. And that's all. And now it just keeps ratcheting up. And all that is, the only reason you do those kinds of things are for warfare purposes. When you are trying to intimidate, when you are trying to push a different nation into doing something that they don't believe is in their best interests. And so what is going to happen on the 2nd, why he's calling it Liberation Day and all this shit, I don't know. maybe he's going to get out of NATO, which I'm sure he's going to do at some point soon. But anyway, that's another date to watch out for. Last thing, I know that there is a series of protests and whatnot scheduled for the 29th. What I will tell you is this: be careful with the movements and people that you get involved with. I want people to protest at Tesla dealerships. I want people to scream at Elon Musk, make a fucking mess, but do not vandalize or commit a crime, you dumb fucks. Don't. Just all it does is give them what they want. If you look on the former Twitter, there's a bunch of people like keying cars as they go by, sort of like that, and cat turds like, go find him, string him up, it's a terrorist. It's insane. So just don't fall into any traps of when you might get yourself in a situation that you did not intend to be in. So yeah. That's all I'm saying. And there may be some other things to be cautious of. I don't want to get into it, but just be careful with what's going on there.
Be cautious of people who operate for political technologists who are America's real enemies. Will find controlled opposition everywhere. All you have to do is look at the Women's March, Standing Rock, BLM, always infiltrated, so just, eyes wide open.
I want to just remind people who happened to be around in 2017 on the internet. I don't know if you remember, but the resistance, remember? Follow back resistance, and everybody was, in their little loop-de-doops, and whoop whoop. That was infiltrated as fuck. It was highly artificial, and never went anywhere. It went off in all sorts of weird directions. Like, remember, there was pings between towers and lots of dumb shit for libs to get distracted with. And nothing ever happened.
No.
So that was intentional, and there will be that sort of thing again, and it will be worse because the stakes are higher.
These are warfare tactics, and it's also the type of thing that an authoritarian looks for in order to crack down and create emergency freeze. So that's where we are. And quite frankly, as Jim said months ago, I think people have to figure out how to fight this again on the battlefield. We need information warfare. We need our own warriors, and we just have to be really smart. And all you have to do is read everything that anybody's written on this subject in the last decade to see how it goes. Go review Keir Giles' NATO handbook on Russian information warfare, and just remember how this stuff works. So the more educated you are, I think the more you can protect yourself. Final clip. But is there anything that you have, a beautiful sentiment, a mantra, something that people can grab onto like a life raft in this time?
I do, but it's kind of banal. So I do not normally share it, but kind of it helps me, actually it is a thing that, that you would repeat to yourself. So it's kind of a Churchill's quip, that never.
We need some fucking Churchills. We need some FDRs. I'm tired of cowardice and weakness and the status quo, to Gabrielis's very good point. The status quo is gone. Bye-bye, status quo. Bye, norms. Bye, institutions. buy all of that shit. We got us. We got people. We got a lot of us. That's what we got. And that's enough. It doesn't take that many. It really doesn't. But we are going to have to stand up. Non-violently, peacefully, we are going to have to stand up and show ourselves in force. So anyway, thank you for that great interview. And I apologize for not being there.
All right. I think it's time to take this out. Yeah. America needs a Maidan. This is war. I hope Europe wakes up to it.